I think I know what happened to my brother. I'm writing this in a way that no one will be able to identify who I am or who my brother is. But it's the internet, and everyone fancies themselves a detective. My brother vanished many years ago, and when I say vanished, I mean his situation was labeled one of those creepy, unsolved enigmas. It made the news. I clearly remember my parents giving interviews right in our living room. I think I know what transpired with him. I was very young when he disappeared. I barely recall him, but I do remember adoring him deeply. He would pull me around our neighborhood in a wagon. Most kids his age wouldn't do that. In the days leading up to his disappearance, I remember him staying home to look after me. I would stay in my room and play Nintendo 64 throughout the day. A man visited. I remember him. He was older, nearly our dad's age. My brother made me go into my room whenever the doorbell rang. After the man left, my brother would ask me not to mention anything about him. With my brain only preoccupied with video games and extra sweets at that age, I agreed. I didn't care or understand the seriousness of the situation. The day before he vanished, I remember the older man visiting again. I was in the kitchen and glanced up, seeing him kiss my brother. They embraced. They didn't mind that I saw them. The older man waved at me, and I waved back. Then I continued watching cartoons. I drifted off on the couch and woke up to my brother whispering outside our front door. "Don't worry, he's asleep," he said. The older man said something inaudible, and then my brother said something I couldn't decipher, but I caught the words "visit them," or perhaps he said "visit him." Either way, I know the word "visit" was in his sentence. The man raised his voice and said, "No." Then I heard "plan" and "city." Then I fell asleep again. The next morning, the day he vanished, my parents were at work. My brother was behaving quite oddly. I recall him glancing at the clock in the afternoon. I recall him picking me up and asking if I wanted to ride in the wagon. I was too engrossed in Nintendo 64 and declined. He almost pleaded with me, and I refused again. Then he mentioned he had to go to our neighbor's house for something. I don't even recall what he said. I agreed. He reminded me not to open the door for anyone except Mom and Dad. I yelled at him okay, because Super Mario was irritating me, and he wasn't making things better. He hugged me, told me he loved me, and left. He never returned. All these years, decades later, I think he was in love with that man. I know he was. The memories sporadically surged back to me earlier. I'm not exactly sure why, but it has been occupying my thoughts recently. I can't sleep because I keep dwelling on it. I believe my brother left with that man and they took off together. Or perhaps something worse happened, but I don't think that's the case. My freshman year of college, I was part of a sports team that gained national attention. I remember my team's picture was on ESPN along with our university's name. A few days later, I received a package at my dorm. It was a gift basket. I assumed it was from my parents, so I didn't read the card. I discarded it immediately and ate what was inside. It was only candy, Nerds, Jolly Ranchers, Tootsie Rolls, and Hershey's Kisses. I called my dad to thank him for the gift basket, and he said he didn't send one. Neither did Mom. Then I started to ponder. All of those candies were what I used to eat as a child. Literally, all I consumed during the earliest years of my life were those candies. I tried to locate the card but couldn't. Then I started reminiscing about how my brother would wheel me in the wagon to the gas station near our house so I could get candy after dinner, even though it was a punishable offense from Mom. Months later, around Christmas, I received an anonymous Christmas card. The card only had a smiley face on it. Since that time, I've heard nothing else. No one I know sent that card. I never responded. I think every day if he's out there somewhere. I have never shared this with anyone. When the police inquired about what happened that day, I told them he went to the neighbors because that's honestly all I could recall. It devastated my parents. My mom became addicted to painkillers, and my dad has had 3 affairs. I know this tragedy is no excuse to cheat, but it sure didn't help. It has shattered our family. Maybe my brother realizes what he did. Maybe he regrets it and thinks he can't return home. But if I could see him today, I would just want to tell him that he is always welcome in my home. I love you so much, brother. We have so much catching up to do. Please come home. Please update. It's 4 p.m. and I'm drunk. LOL. These last few weeks have been crazy. I posted on here before about my brother going missing a long time ago. I thought he had run away from home. Long story short, I got in touch with some detectives that our family has known since my brother went missing. When I started asking questions, they informed me that my brother was no longer on any missing persons registry. When I asked what that meant, they told me that he was removed at my parents' request. I asked my parents, specifically my dad. My dad ignored me. My mom told me my brother is alive and okay as far as she knows. They found my brother years ago, a very, very long time ago, and learned he was living with another man. He's gay, and it disgusted my parents. He reached out to them. They told him they didn't want anything to do with him, and that I didn't remember him and wouldn't want to see him. I went ballistic. My parents weren't fazed by it. They truly hate my brother for who he is, for being gay. They kept him a secret from me all my life. My brother missed the birth of his nephew. He missed my wedding, graduations, everything, just because of my parents. They lied to me. I've managed to obtain a phone number and contact information from law enforcement officials. My brother left it all accessible in case family members wanted to reach out to him. I still can't muster the courage to call him. The address I have for him is on the other side of the country, but he's alive. My brother is alive. I'm drunk right now because I can't handle any of this. I haven't spoken to my parents in weeks, and I never plan on speaking to them again, not after what they've done to me and my brother. This is real, and it happened. It's happening right now. I don't know how to process this at all. My parents let me believe my brother was dead or kidnapped forever when in reality he just ran away. When he wanted to come back, they disowned him. I'm crying right now. Update. The day after I wrote my last post, I woke up and called in to work. I told my wife, who is essentially my confidant, and I tell her everything, the whole story. She wasn't really surprised. She's not fond of my parents much, but like many of you, she told me to call the number I was given for my brother immediately. She insisted on it. She took herself and my son out for a day together so I could be alone to talk with him. I dialed the number about 7 times before I actually pressed the call button. It started ringing, and I hung up. Then I got frustrated with myself and called the number again. It rang, and I got a voicemail. But it was the automated voice, not anyone else's. I didn't leave a voicemail. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. I called my wife and told her to come home, and she refused until I had talked to someone on the other end of the phone. After about an hour of pacing and drinking 2 glasses of scotch at 1 goes in the afternoon, I called the number again. It rang 3 times. I panicked and hung up, but this time the number was returning my call. I swear to whatever deity above, I thought my heart was going to stop. I almost vomited right then. I picked up the call. The initial sound I heard on the line was a man laughing in the background. There was wind noise on the phone. The person on the other end was outdoors, and it was breezy. "Who is this?" It was his voice. I recognized that voice. It was my brother who had been absent for my entire life. I covered my mouth with my trembling hands and just sat there. He kept asking me who it was. The man in the background was trying to speak over him. He hung up on me. I called him back immediately. He answered again, me being an uneasy mess. The first thing I said after decades of not seeing him and believing he was dead, I blurted, "I got your number." He asked me who I was and what I wanted. I said, "It's me." There was an incredibly long pause. I thought the call had disconnected. Then I heard him say, "I know." He told me to meet him in an hour at a specific place. I asked where he was. He said he wasn't in a place that I should know about and that it wasn't safe for me to know. My wife was home by then, and she stayed with our son. I left for the meeting place as quickly as I could. It was in a parking lot of a supermarket that wasn't very busy. I stood outside, pacing and checking my watch. I felt like I was going to faint. Finally, I saw a man approaching me, and when he got close enough, I could see it was my brother, the same man I saw years ago in my home, the one with whom he disappeared. He approached me, hugged me tightly, and started crying. I couldn't help but break down too. He told me he had wanted to reach out sooner, but was too afraid. He said the reason he never did was because he had been living under the radar and didn't want to drag me into his mess. He told me how my parents had manipulated him, they had lied to him and threatened him. They were controlling. When he tried to return, they had turned him away. They tried to destroy him, and they succeeded in a way. He told me he felt conflicted about reaching out to me because he didn't want me to be hurt or to have to bear the pain of our family's issues. He wanted me to be free of their toxicity. We talked for hours. We cried and shared everything that had happened over the years. I told him everything that had happened in my life and the pain I had felt from his disappearance. He told me about the man who had become his partner and how he had been a source of love and support. It was a bittersweet reunion, but it was also incredibly healing. I'm still processing everything, and I haven't told my parents that I've found him. I don't know if I ever will. My brother and I are working on rebuilding our relationship, and I'm slowly starting to forgive myself for not reaching out sooner. This has been the most intense experience of my life, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way forward. For now, I'm just grateful to have found him and to have the chance to reconnect.